welcome to HITC Sport. Right, pretty simple one here today. Let's take a look at every Premier League club's current manager and find the best player that they utterly failed with during their management career. Right, let's go. Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, Mesut Ozil. Well, this one is easy. Mikel Arteta has already admitted that he failed with Mesut Ozil. This isn't a secret. Good Christ, you'd have thought the player who shared a dressing room with that man would have been able to bring out the best of him. Good Christ, look at that hug. You'd swear they were each other's other half on Bebo, but no, under Arteta, Ozil was barely able to drag himself out of the pitch. He left him out of his 25-man squad before dumping him like a chunk of wet broccoli out the back arse of Turkey. And don't tell me it's an age thing, because Willian is older than Ozil and he plays nearly every week. Aston Villa, Dean Smith, Danny Drinkwater. Listen, I know Danny Drinkwater should probably blame himself for failing on loan at Aston Villa, but still, Dean Smith was given a potentially top-class midfielder and he should have made him work. An England international arriving on loan from Chelsea, this guy was the original Ross Barkley. Let's not forget, he was a Premier League champion at Leicester, and were Smith able to screw his head on, he'd have made Conor Hourihane look like a one-legged postman. But no, you have to say, Smith failed. Brighton, Graham Potter, Alireza Jahanbakhsh. Listen, I don't care that Alireza Jahanbakhsh doesn't suit Graham Potter's style. There's a winger who scored 20 goals a season in Holland, earning a club record £18 million move to Brighton. And yet, under Potter, he scored 2 goals in 18 months with a talented Iranian dogged with injuries and struggling to even lift his weary arse off the bench. Burnley, Sean Dyche, Ben Gibson. I know Ben Gibson is a mostly forgotten about championship footballer right now, but let's not forget the hype surrounding this homegrown Middlesbrough centre-back. Even after relegation in 2017, this guy was being tipped for the World Cup. Good Christ, even Pep Guardiola wanted to stick him in his Man City squad, so when Sean Dyche got his hands on him for 15 million quid, you'd assume the man was a turf more coup. No, he only ever played 1 Premier League match for the club, and yes, he scored, but he was also part of a defence which led in 5. Sorry Dyche, but you failed here. Chelsea, Thomas Tuchel, Adrien Rabiot. Adrien Rabiot is an example of a talented midfielder who's done his level best to chuck his potential in a bin. Good Christ, his attitude already cost him a World Cup medal, and yes, I know this former Man City youth smeared his face in silverware during his 9 years at PSG, but Thomas Tuchel was never able to make sure his head was screwed on. Instead of sticking his arm around the boy, he repeatedly dropped him from the starting 11 for discipline issues, forcing Rabiot to go on strike and to be then dumped in the reserves. So it's a warning to Callum Hudson-Odoi. If Tuchel can bin off such a talented midfielder like Rabiot because he didn't like his attitude, then trust me, if you react badly to getting subbed off early against Southampton, you'll quickly find yourself scrubbing toilets at Costa Coffee. Crystal Palace, Roy Hodgson, Roberto Carlos. Well, this is pretty obvious. Roberto Carlos is widely seen as probably the best left back to ever kick a ball, with 125 caps for Brazil, playing in 2 World Cup finals. I mean, come on. But while he was at Inter Milan during the mid-90s, Roy Hodgson told him he couldn't defend and kept trying to stick him on the left wing, eventually forcing him out the door to Real Madrid. I'm sorry Hodgson, but if you're a man who unironically signed Paul Konchesky for Liverpool, and yet you think Carlos couldn't defend, just utter wet spinach. Everton, Carlo Ancelotti, Fernando Torres. Look, I don't want to completely blame Carlo Ancelotti for the downfall of Fernando Torres, but we have to put this one down as his biggest personal failure. In January 2011, Torres was a reigning world champion, seen as arguably the most lethal centre-forward on planet Earth, and was a British record £50 million buy for Chelsea. Ancelotti picked him 18 times and he scored just once, and even that was when he nearly tripped over the ball against West Ham. Yes, the Premier League title race was over by January, but good Christ, Ancelotti was picking him for the Champions League quarter-final against Man United, and he just stumbled about like a diabetic pig. Just awful. Fulham, Scott Parker, Alexander Mitrovic. Okay, listen, I know Alexander Mitrovic was a prolific goal machine under Scott Parker in the Championship last season, but I'm sorry, neither of these men were employed to just excel in the lower leagues, and now they're in the Premier League. Parker's just given up on the Serbian centre-forward. You know, someone in the club once turned down £50 million for it. He's essentially gone the Rafa Benitez route of binning this man to the bench, and considering he's only scored in 1 game this season, no wonder. Leeds, Marcelo Bielsa, Nicolas Pepe. Listen, I realised Marcelo Bielsa was the one to bring Nicolas Pepe from Angers to Lille in 2017. It was just that Pepe only started playing well after Bielsa had been sacked. Under the Chilean master, he went 8 games without a goal, with Lille stuck second bottom of the French division. If you told Bielsa then that the club would eventually sell this winger, who was clearly allergic to end product, for more than £75 million, he'd have probably sneezed blood. Leicester, Brendan Rodgers, Mario Balotelli. Again, I don't want to completely blame Brendan Rodgers for the death of Mario Balotelli's career because it's not his fault. The Italian is 30 years old and stuck in the Italian second tier, but still, when Balotelli arrived at Anfield for 16 million quid, he was just 24, and this was only 2 years out from winning the Premier League and ripping Euro 2012 to shreds. Now let's not forget, he just scored 30 goals in 54 games for Inter Milan. The man was in good condition to replace Luis Suarez, and yet 1 league goal all season for Liverpool, missing open goals against QPR and stealing penalties from future Premier League winning captains. Just an utter disaster. Chapter. Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp, Ciro Immobile. Maybe this one is harsh, considering Jurgen Klopp already had his hands full, turning Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang into a 20-goal-a-season goal machine at Borussia Dortmund. But still, he had Ciro Immobile in the building for one season. A guy who has since scored 144 goals in 203 games for Lazio. One of the deadliest strikers in Europe. And yet under Klopp, he literally scored 3 goals in 24 Bundesliga matches, with Dortmund stuffed to the foot of the league in February 2015. Considering he since exploded into an Italian goal machine, you have to say Klopp failed with this one. Man City, Pep Guardiola is Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Listen, it sounds ridiculous to call Zlatan Ibrahimovic a Barcelona flop when he scored 21 goals in his only season at the club. But lads, when Pep Guardiola signed him in a swap deal with Samuel Eto'o, Zlatan was supposed to be Barca's main man for the next 5 years at least. No, Zlatan's ego was slapped in the face by the club's focal point being Lionel Messi, and within a year he was turfed out to AC Milan, while Eto'o, the Barca cast out, was winning yet another treble. Man United, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Romelu Lukaku. Look, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has done way better at Old Trafford than I thought he would, but still, that doesn't excuse his treatment of Romelu Lukaku, thinking he was somehow better than the Belgian centre forward. Sorry Ollie, Lukaku is a better striker than you ever were. I realise people said Lukaku was too static and not mobile enough for Ollie's brand of football. Well, 2 years later, and you're sticking a nearly 40-year-old Cavani up front. Lukaku has been a 20-goal-a-season goal machine at nearly every club he's been to, even at West Brom under Steve Clarke. If Ollie had just found a way to accommodate the Belgian and play to his strengths, then I'm sorry, with Bruno Fernandes creating space for him, Lukaku would have fired your club to the Premier League title this season. Newcastle, Steve Bruce, Joelinton. I know Steve Bruce has been a manager since the last century, and there have been about 50 players he failed to get the best out of, but I'm sorry, Joelinton has to stand tall as the worst one. A club record £40 million buy from Newcastle, and Bruce clearly didn't have a clue how to use him. I'd be confident he didn't even know who he was in the Bundesliga. Another Brazilian centre-forward arriving in England from Hoffenheim. Most people thought he'd be the next Roberto Firmino. I'm sorry, Firmino's first touch alone makes this guy look like a deflated blow-up doll. Joelinton has the ball control of a punctured box of Rice Krispies. To think he once represented the Brazil under-17s in 2012, how, when he runs like his kidneys are filled with grease? For a £40 million centre-forward, the most expensive number 9 in Newcastle's history, then I'm sorry Bruce, 3 league goals in 54 games is utterly pathetic. Sheffield United, Chris Wilder, Ravel Morrison. Again, I don't want to blame Chris Wilder for this one because Sheffield United had an excellent season last year, but still, a small part of him must feel sick to his lungs that he could never unlock the potential of Ravel Morrison. Everyone who remembers this guy as a Manchester United youth player knows the natural ability of Morrison. Make no mistake about it, this guy would have been the most skillful player in nearly every training session at Sheffield United last season. That's not even up for debate. And if Wilder had been able to unlock his potential, he'd probably have scored 10 goals from midfield to get them into Europe. So it's a bit of a shame. Southampton, Ralph Hasenhuttl, Oliver Burke. Remember the utter hype train about Oliver Burke when he enraged Nottingham Forest fans by signing for RB Leipzig for 13 million in 2016? To be fair, the Scottish wonder kid didn't do much in Europe and was mostly stuck to Ralph Hasenhuttl's bench, but he was just largely a fat chunk of cash rotting in the stands. Tottenham, Jose Mourinho, Paul Pogba. Yeah, throughout the 2 decades of Jose Mourinho's glittering management career, you have to call Paul Pogba his biggest disappointment. Good Christ, he, as a £90 million world record signing in 2016, the most confident player on planet Earth, and don't tell me Jose never rated him because he was trying to get him to Stamford Bridge before the 2014 World Cup. But again, aside from a half-decent debut season where Pogba struck up a relationship with Zlatan Ibrahimovic and lifted a couple of trophies, the French World Cup champion was mostly a Mourinho flop, often finding himself stapled to the bench. Trust me, if Jose had been able to get the best out of Pogba, he'd probably have kept his job for another 2 years. West Brom, Sam Allardyce, KARLAN Grant. You might say Sam Allardyce was always doomed at West Brom, but I don't believe that. The key to survival was staring at him in the face. KARLAN Grant was a Huddersfield goal machine in the Championship, but he also scored a few for them in the Premier League. He knows where the back of the net is. But Big Sam has largely neglected him, stuffing him on the wing. No wonder he hasn't scored under him. West Ham, David Moyes, WILFRIED, ZAHA. Again, pretty simple here. Had Sir Alex Ferguson stayed on at Manchester United, I have no doubt that ZAHA would still be at Old Trafford now and spoken about in the same breath as Marcus Rashford. But no, Moyes largely ignored him, binned him off to Cardiff and essentially ruined his Manchester United career, instead choosing to prioritise Adnan Januzaj, some wet candlestick with the muscle strength of a Capri Sun. Wolves, Nuno Espirito Santo, João Cancelo. Yeah, if Nuno Espirito Santo had just picked João Cancelo more often during his one season at Valencia, maybe then he'd have been able to convince Wolves to rival Man City for a signature from Juventus. In a back four consisting of defensive cheeseburgers like Shokra Mustafi and Nicolas Otamendi, Santo chose to make a talent like Cancelo a bench-warming right back, giving him just 13 league games all season. Just what? Anybody else in the comments below? Have I been too harsh? Let me know in the comments below. Enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.